Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Tomorrow's a holiday, so you'll have a welcome respite from my musings. And let me thank you once again for stopping by. I'll start with some home thoughts. I saw this link from Bob Geldoff. Aung took the greatest prize humans can give to another and then becomes one of the great ethnic cleansers on the planet. And listen to it all, because it's pretty powerful stuff from Geldoff. I'll put up a photograph of the Rohingyas' desperate journey out of Myanmar. It's taken as expressed in Photo Booth. This Bob Geldoff link will take 56 seconds to be exact, of your time. And in it, he asks, how dare they, how dare they? Well worth listening to. And that took me back to a song from Bob Geldoff from many years ago called Rat Trap, the Boomtown Rats. Take a listen to that as well. That was from an album called A Tonic for the Troops. And really is, I remember, I think it came out when I was about 13. It made a big impression on me. Tim is probably Africa's most famous big tusker elephant. He is simply majestic, and to be in his presence is awesome. David Yarrow. That took me to Carlos Fuentes' Terra Nostra. Incredible, the animal that first dreamed of another animal. Olafur Eliasson, the weather project from the year 2003, interesting as well in the context of global warming and kind of sandstorm we've seen in the UK. Carlos Fuentes again, did you know we are all the object of another's imagination. And then I went to Ngugi wa Thiong'o, for I'd reached a point in my life when I came to view words differently. A closer look at language could reveal the secret of life. And your own actions are a better mirror of your life than the actions of all your enemies put together. Wizard of the Crow, excellent book, I must say, I've enjoyed reading it. I like this banana leaf, Apolo's signature fish head curry dish. This casual restaurant on Racecourse Road serves its curries on a banana leaf rather than a plate. It's a favourite of British chef Alan Sparing of the Chili Pickle restaurant in Brighton, who enjoys the fish head curry. This dish has become famous since the 60s, when a South Indian restaurant owner offered it to entice the local Chinese clientele, he says. The gravy features lots of tamarind, chili, onions, garlic, tomatoes, coriander, cumin, turmeric, and fenugreek powder, served with okra and aubergine, and a side of steamed rice. It's delicious, and as you work through the large bowl of thin gravy, expect a nice burn to build from within. Political reflections at the Communist Party Congress. Xi Jinping plays the emperor, according to the New Yorker. Perhaps no event embodies the unyielding abstruseness and the unforgiving hierarchy of China's ruling Communist Party as much as its party Congress. The government's most important leadership conference, attended by some 2,300 delegates from across the country. It is held every 5 years in Beijing's Great Hall of the People. And when the week-long meeting finally begins, one can be certain that the crucial politicking has already concluded. What precedes is a choreographed spectacle, bearing fastidiously scripted speeches, pro forma elections of what has heretofore been determined, a leadership reshuffle in the 7-member Politburo, the highest echelon of power, and in the case of the 19th Communist Party Congress, which opened today, high-spirited, propagandistic posters reminding the masses that life in China is good, every day is like a holiday. This is a message that Xi Jinping, who was appointed president of the previous party Congress in 2012, is eager to instill in a country that continues to grapple with the vertiginous pace of change and the outsized influence of politics in everyday life. The aim is not so much to bring out a Maoist revival. The terror of the great helmsman's cultural revolution still haunts the nation, but to reinvigorate belief in and loyalty to the party, thereby strengthening the regime's legitimacy. As he stated during the last party congress, the party must consistently remain vigilant, will always remain the firm leadership core. Xi's desires to achieve the China dream, defined as the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, is categorically distinct in scope and ambition from that of his predecessors Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin. Earlier last year, the Communist Party anointed Xi as a core leader. To be the core leader, and the chief executive licenses him to play an almost imperial role in shaping the fate of the nation. As Xi made clear from the outset, he is intent on both defining a new world order and restoring its Chinese culture to its former esteem. As Xi made clear today during his 3.5-hour address to the party congress, he sees this moment as a new historic juncture in China's development, and himself as the man to seize it. Refining his personal control rather than reforming a sclerotic system may seem expedient for Xi, and in the short term he may be able to accomplish his immediate goals faster. But setting the precedent of a modern-day emperor ensnares Chinese politics in a cycle of volatility and unsustainability that renders an entire nation vulnerable once again to the whimsy of an individual. Several thousand years ago, the Chinese nation trod a path that was different from other nations' culture and development. Xi said in a speech to the Politburo in 2014, "We should be more respectful and mindful of 5,000 years of continuous Chinese culture," he said. My piece at the end of August was China Rising, and I said China's parabolic rise has been simply breathtaking. Millions of Chinese have been lifted out of poverty, and China continues to expand at a pace that other big economies can only dream about. Xi Jinping's One Belt, One Road program binds the world to Beijing because all the roads and railways have but one destination, and that is China. Washington has metasized into an epicenter of risk, Donald Trump refers, and talk of a unipolar, US-dominated world have largely evaporated. President Putin refused to be rolled over by a Victoria Nuland-inspired color revolution in the Ukraine and drew a line in the sand. One of the collateral consequences of that was to send President Putin into the ready embrace of Xi Jinping. In fact, far from being a unipolar world, we have entered a bipolar or even tripolar world. David Inglis, again, let me show you, say what you want, but name one other government that's been able to achieve economic prosperity of this scale in such a short space of time. Look at the chart. Xi Jinping, the Chinese nation now stands tall and firm in the east. It was an echo of the famous September 1949 declaration by Mao Zedong, the party's revolutionary hero. The Chinese people, comprising 1/4 of humanity, have now stood up. Again, going back to that piece I wrote at the end of August, apart from a few half-hearted and timid FONOPs, China has established control over the South China Sea. It has created artificial islands and then militarized those artificial islands across the South China Sea. It is a mind-boggling geopolitical advance any which way you care to cut it. China has advanced its footprint in Pakistan, where it has leased the Gwadar port. In the Middle East, giving it access to the Middle East. Sri Lanka, which gorged on Chinese debt, has had to disgorge the Hambantota port to its creditor. And recently we saw China formally open a military facility in Djibouti. These moves taken together speak to a material Chinese advance. The pivot to Asia, which was supposed to contain China, is dead in the water, and China has sprung that trap. AFP very kindly put out an infographic, the world's second biggest economy, take a look. I like this, China's giant ball of money may be headed back to stocks, says Bloomberg. This is near-term data from tea commodity about China. And the 91-year-old Yang Zemin wasn't listening so attentively to Xi Jinping's 3.5-hour speech. Hollywood disowns shamed Weinstein. The new Private Eye is out. Take a look at that. Very funny. And I was talking about reputational risk and a cautionary tale from South Africa. But the same applies to Harvey Weinstein. The article in Bloomberg is talking about how bad behavior can ruin a company. Accusations of sexual misconduct against Harvey Weinstein haven't just rocked Hollywood. They've also led to the potential destruction of the company, Weinstein Co. The privately held independent film and TV studio is in talks to sell itself to Colony Capital, private equity arm of Colony North Star. I like this from Al Franken. The ambassador from Russia is Russian, drilling down on Sessions' explanations, denials of contact with Russians. If you really think that's Melania standing next to Trump, I've got some great beachfront property in Arizona to sell you, says Jason Pollock. Iraqi Kurds withdrew to the June 2014 lines as the offensive continues. Large amounts of territory seized by the Kurdish Peshmerga over the course of multiple years of war with ISIS have been ceded back to the Iraqi central government in only about 72 hours. The speed of it was quite amazing. Take a look at Spain's 10-year spread over Germany. This is from Holger. International markets, Dow has hit another milestone, closed at a fresh high above 13,000 for the first time ever. But it's looking as if it's going to trade down this morning. The last time Japanese stocks were on a run like this, Michael Jackson's Bad was debuting. Nikkei 225 on its longest winning streak in 29 years. Another crash in the offing, asks the FT, running this chart that puts the 2017 rally into 1929 and the 1987 October crash. On October 19, 1987, which came to be known as Black Monday, the Dow lost 22.6% amid a backdrop of panic selling. Let's move on to the currency markets because we've had some pretty big moves here. Euro dollar 117.89, popped above 118 earlier. Dollar index must be around the 93.50 level. Japanese yen, that's improved 112.65, having topped 113 yesterday and this morning. Swiss franc 0.9796. The pound is at 131.40. That's come off. The Australian dollar, which had some strong numbers and rallied sharply, is now at 0.7854, and Euro rupee 65.082. South Korean won 1131.74, the Rial 3.1715, Egyptian pound 17.6692, South African rand 13.5318. Dollar rose as high as 113.09 against the yen in early Asian trade, but is currently at 112.65. This was following on a rise in bond yields, but that might not be maintained if the stock market comes off. US dollar sure looks like it wants to complete IHS and pop out of this channel. Critical area coming up, says triple leverage. I think he's right. But we got a hurdle 93.50. Get up way above it. So far we're being resisted by that level. Tea commodity yesterday, so it seems like the bottom in euro dollar. Last trading 117.86. It's in a 114.50, 118.85 range at the moment, in my opinion. Any CEO dismisses Ray Dalio's big short, saying it's no big issue. The short placed against Rome-based company by hedge fund billionaire Ray Dalio is not a big issue. This has happened already in the past with hedge funds. They come, they go. Descalzi said. I like this quote on Bloomberg about oil from the head of oil at Glencore. You'll see oil at $100 again, I'm sure. You'll see oil at $25 again. That's just the nature of the oil price. WTI crude oil sold off hard, got below 51.50. As I'm speaking, we're at $51.52. Gold, let's take a look at what that's happening to that. 1283.43. We're probably getting a bid from the financial markets at the moment. Flight to safety bid. Silver, take a look at this chart from T Commodity as well. Let's move on to Sub-Saharan Africa. Front pages in Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF Youth League is split over proposal to promote Grace Mugabe to vice president post. It's not going to happen. If it does, it will be a debacle. Angola is not the next Venezuela, state oil firm says, as it cuts debt. The head of the state oil firm Sonangol said on Wednesday, while pledging to further cut debt, even if both oil-rich nations have relied heavily on loans from China. Venezuela, the Latin American oil behemoth, has found itself struggling to repay debts to China and Russia that total at least $50 billion. But the Sonangol chair, Isabel dos Santos, said her company was not on a similar track. There is really pretty much nothing in common, she said, maybe just the weather. Dos Santos told a Reuters Newsmaker event that Sonangol has already slashed $3 billion in debt, and that she has the backing of the new president for an ambitious reform plan that aims to further cut debts. Our relations are in full alignment, she said. She said the president is fully aware of her plans. May 2017, I said reserves have been depleted from Abuja to Riyadh, from Luanda to Caracas, and in all the oil-producing capitals in the world. August 2015, I said the end is nigh for crude oil and oil producers from Caracas to Luanda, from Riyadh to Abuja. South Africa's retail sales grew at a whopping 5.5% year-on-year in August, strongest growth since May 2013. South African oil shares just shy of a record high. It's up 14.8% this year. Dollar versus rand, expect the rand to sell off further back to the 1370 level. Nigerian oil shares up 36.34% year to date, and the Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 37.12% year to date. Africa Confidential asks, crisis, what crisis? Is there a political crisis in Kenya? Would the involvement of foreign mediators help solve it? On this issue, there is stark disagreement between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga. Kenyatta has been quick to reject the assertion that a constitutional crisis is looming. He said, there is no crisis and we're not interested in mediation. For emphasis, 12 MPs from Kenyatta's Jubilee Party have jointly written a letter reiterating this to the African Union, the European Union, the United Nations, and the US government. Odinga, presidential candidate for NASA, insists there is a deepening crisis and the governing Jubilee Party is trying to scupper democratic reforms. He told Africa Confidential there are no circumstances under which he would contest the repeat elections on 26th October. The 26th is a no deal, you can take that to the bank. The 26th will not happen. If it happens, it will not be an election in the Republic of Kenya. There will be no credibility, he said. What happens next, asks Africa Confidential. There will be a flurry of court hearings on the elections. The IEBC wants to clarify the effects of Parliament's amendments on its operations. NASA is going to the Supreme Court to challenge the validity of the High Court's ruling, putting AOCOT and the smaller parties on the ballot for the 26th of October. It also wants to challenge the schedule for the rerun. Odinga said he would contest elections only when NASA's demands for reforms were met, adding that his supporters in areas such as Nyanza, Western and Coast provinces, and Nairobi want a boycott of the 26th of October rerun. Should such a boycott gain wide support, NASA could argue the rerun in Kenyatta's presumed victory will lack legitimacy. The Constitution stipulates that a presidential election must be held in all 290 constituencies. The Kenyan Election Board head, Wafula Chebukati, says he's not certain the vote will be free and fair. Under such conditions, it is difficult to guarantee a free and fair and credible election, he said. He's just not tenable, in my view. Kenyan election authority in disarray a week before repeat vote is Bloomberg. As things stand now, they are not able to conduct an election. If they go ahead, it's illegitimate, said Ndungu Wainaina, who's on the side of the opposition. If they want, the IEBC can invoke constitutional provisions and call off the election, either call off or proceed, but they should be prepared to live with the consequences. So we've got a tough situation. The commission is dysfunctional, there is no doubt about that, said Peter Wanyande. They may go ahead and purport to hold elections. Under these circumstances, it won't be credible. Kenya's opposition is calling for protests on the date of the repeat election. This is according to Reuters Africa. And on the 9th of October, I wrote a piece, and in it I said it's clear now that the opposition is taking an asymmetric approach. Paul Virilio, in his book Speed and Politics, says the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the form of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and instead becomes a motor, a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. I said then what is clear is that the advantage of incumbency in fact accelerates in round 2 of this election. Therefore, and this was prior to his decision, I said I expect the opposition to boycott the election entirely, and that the strategy of tension will be maintained by degrading and denigrating the entire process. And I said I expect the opposition to boycott entirely, and therefore that's what we're seeing. David Pilling writes in the FT how the gloss came off Kenya's Supreme Court ruling. He's saying he's saying if Odinga is raining on the Democratic parade, so is Mr. Kenyatta. Kenyatta's accused his opponent of being a sore loser. And he's making some important points. Take a look at that. Ryla says the police blocked him from leaving and detained him for some time in Jimmy Wanjigi's house. High Court now allows Nakumat's eviction from Junction Mall. KenGen released their full year results yesterday. I interviewed the CEO and MD, Rebecca Simiano. Take a listen. KenGen corrected yesterday because of the dividend pass. There was some disappointment, but take a look at the absolute returns. They tell you everything. Nairobi all shares up 17.49% so far this year, but has corrected 9.69% lower since closing at a multi-year high on August 28th. NSE 20 is up 12.72% this year, and that's corrected 12.698% since closing at a multi-year high on August the 15th. We have a day off tomorrow, so I wish you well, and we'll reconvene on Monday, and thanks for the support.